In this video, I wanted to do a little bit of a review of what has and has not been effective, moving along the lines that good medicine works. That is the definition of something that is medicinal, that it heals a wound. And since our greatest wound is separation, the dissociation from parts of ourselves, the dissociation from the essential parts of one another. And since I just woke up with that as the theme kind of percolating in my mind, I wanted to just put out a little bit of an overview of what I've tried and what has worked and what has failed to work, and a few thoughts about that. And so the first thing I will say is that requests, one of the things that High teaches, work. In some arenas more than others, and so in some locations more than others, and in some areas more than others. And so one of the things that's, I think, very important to be aware of is the influence of culture. And so, for example, in America, one of the most shameful things in a very individualistic culture is to have needs. And I know what my needs are. I have lots and lots of needs. And I would say one of the most painful needs that I've been aware of my whole life is having grown up with a father and mother that were adult children who were roughly 6 years old and 4 years old, respectively, and with a mother that was so terrified of traumas of her own that she's really only begged me to do one thing in her entire life, which is, Dane, please don't make me feel what went on when I was 4 years old. Please. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to go anywhere near that. So in this context, of course, I had no mother. And America, as if you travel around the world, one of the most masculine cultures in the world. Get to the point. Get it done. Measure yourself on the exterior. Spend 80-90% of your time on the exterior. Don't spend a single hour in education on emotions. I mean, let's just take a whole third of who you are and pretend it doesn't exist. In fact, let's go one step further. Let's bully you, shame you, humiliate you, and confuse you emotionally, because it's not enough to leave you emotionally illiterate. Let's confuse you. So, of course, in this situation, anyone trying to connect with themselves, in this case me, is going to have a lot of emotional neediness for nurturing, for tenderness, for caring. And this is an example of, because I've written over maybe 200 Craigslist postings over the years, roughly 80 or so dating profiles. And what I'm looking at is, this is what I need and what is healthy. What you need and what is healthy is what, so if you've been whacked off this way, for example, a healthy child comes in and has two adult parents and, a mother, a father, the feminine loving and the masculine loving in its own unique way. And the definition of an adult in a parental situation is when they will sacrifice the immediate gratification and expediency of their own lusts, addictions, distractions, coping mechanisms, trauma avoidant, this and that and the other, for the well-being of the child. This is when a parent is being an adult. So we need to have sex to avoid these painful feelings right now, but our child hasn't been fed yet. You get the idea. And the definition of a child or teenager is, let's use the child for our entertainment, for our eroticism, for our this, that, and the other, because, well, how handy that 2-year-old is nearby. Isn't that interesting when let's put the child in the dryer and press start and see how loud it screams. This is dissociated sociopathic behavior that, abused teenager and abused adult child thinks is very amusing. And so, in that context, medicine is the opposite. So stay away from self-centered, children that can't think about anything but themselves. Look for someone that actually does what they say they're going to do. Look for someone that cares more about feelings than addiction and physical sensation. So you're trying to move the life experience from being exploited to being partnered with. You get the idea. And so this is just basic medicine and common sense to take an imbalance and move it towards balance. But for example, in a culture that has shame and taboo around all kinds of things, in a culture that is very immature, America is only 400 years old, if you want to experience a deep respect for presence, better go to Asia, 4,000 years old, 10 times the age. There is exquisite respect for presence. I meet, quote, and this is the moneyism of America, which I experience very rampantly over here. I can't get my girlfriend into America because she doesn't make $24,000 a year. That's the criteria. You talk to the U.S. Embassy. So the moneyism of our country is, extreme, and it's blind. But so what are people who don't make $24,000 a year? Peasants? Whatever it is that we're projecting on some of these countries around the world as a government. I meet these people who have a grace and a poise of presence, of feminine energy that I don't have, that none of my American girlfriends have. And they have it. And we're in a tin hut. And I'm in awe. And I feel mothered. And I feel nurtured. And I feel like I'm in the presence of greatness. And so, going to high workshops, asking for my 100%. I want to nurturing mother energy. Well, this will just get you boycotted by American women right and left. Why? Well, I think one reason is it's feminine, and both American women and American men have learned to be chauvinistic in the sense that need and emotion are weak and they're bad. Why? Why do children come up with that idea? Because the children in America who express hurt, loneliness, pain, all the main wounds of America, yet punished, shamed, shouted at, hit, told, we don't want this part of you around here. Just put on a nice little cheerful smile and get on your little pink dress and you'll be okay. But we don't like little girls who cry. No, we don't like that. We don't like little boys. I mean, we shame depth of emotion. You ask someone to go into their depth of emotion in America, it's not step into your glory. No. It's go back to those childhood memories when you were shamed. Go back into the horror when your parents betrayed you because they didn't want to feel what it feels like to go back to 6 years old either. So rather than joining you in the horror of being a 6-year-old American, they're going to shame you, abandon you, silence you, bribe you. Here's a lollipop. Go away. Don't. Just stop crying and come back when go to your room. You're crying, go away. I mean, this is stuff, rampant right and left. And this is in the New Age communities. I grew up at a Waldorf school and all this stuff. So this is rampant. The more emotional, the more needy one is around feminine energy, the more American women will attack me. And so I can't take that terribly personal. And it's certainly not personal when you just fly halfway around the world and find that the exact opposite is true. So, for example, in a feminine-oriented culture and in a more mature culture, the more need one has, the more the community clusters around you. So I've been in situations, for example, when the high facilitators have been abandoning, betraying, denying, this isn't our stuff, da-da-da-da-da. And they're my paid teachers, facilitators, da-da-da-da-da. I've been in situations crying for 2 hours with Ann Watts, the great mother of high. And she's stone-faced. She never cried once in this whole thing. And then my face is revealing that grief of betrayal, of loneliness, of excruciating horror. And strangers in Thailand will burst into tears around me who can't speak my language, who have no idea. They just see this is someone in extraordinary pain. And they should not be alone. And they hold me and they massage me. They know how to do this, and we don't. Not only do we not know how to do this, but because in America, we're a masculine culture. Who doesn't like to admit they don't know what they're doing? American men or American women who are trying to be masculine because that's what the culture likes, right? The Black Swan is a beautiful book about America's hunger, among other things, for experts who confidently know what's going on and proclaim it, with the right beards and all that on TV. And yet the data doesn't back them up. The data doesn't back up the pundits. They're wrong more than 50% of the time. Monkeys get it better. And why do we hunger for them? It's the infantilized obsession, the worship of the figurehead of this archetypal know-it-all masculine that reassures the terrified 2-year-old, etc., that someone knows what's going on. Erich Fromm wrote about it in Escape from Freedom. Why did the Nazis embrace Hitler? And psychologically, we, in Maslow's work, security, and survival and belonging. The three needs we will seek to meet before we even begin to start looking at truth and other things like that. Well, many of us do not feel secure in our survival, secure in our relationships. And so we look in part for the uncertainty, the medicine of uncertainty, someone who seems to know what they're doing, someone who doesn't know anything more than you or I, but goes out and confidently says, this is going to be the way, da da da. And they just keep doing that. And then, of course, they get it right some of the time, and then everyone flocks to them at those moments and ignores. And so the data doesn't back these experts up. In fact, the data points out. But anyway, read the Black Swan. Now, asking for deep, vulnerable needs directly and leading with that does not work. Seeking to meet the vulnerable needs of American women does not work. An American woman bursts into tears around me, and at least 70% of the time, this is an opportunity for her to apologize and retreat in shame. And if she can't control her emotions around me in particular, she will avoid me because she's successful at suppressing her need and vulnerability around other people who don't ask these questions, who aren't looking at her in the eye, etc. And so in a culture that shames the feminine in men and women, tears are, of course, more feminine than stone face, right? So those are weakness. Those are... And so there's this big game, which basically means who's going to be caught in the less than position, which is who is going to be most feminine in this dynamic. And I remember a psychotherapist, award-winning author, comes over to my house. Well, first of all, as an American woman in a chauvinistic culture, your value is based on your masculinity, not your femininity. And so I wrote to her as a 65-year-old woman because she was near my house, and she said she was interested in quality time, one of my key love languages. Now, she didn't respond for 3 days. Well, I'm sick of this. And so I just wrote and said, I wrote to you because you said you had all this free time and all that. You can't even respond to an email in 3 days. I'm bowing out. Well, within an hour of that, she was interested because I learned in the subsequent pattern that she's in the category of women that only value people who reject them, because anyone who's interested in them can't possibly have any value. But someone who's got more important things to do than them, they're the people they want to be with. So immediately I disengage, she engages. She comes to my house. I ask her to talk, this and that and the other. She's looking at me, very skeptically and all this. And I explained to her that I try and experience a new relationship forming, keeping heart, mind, and body somewhat in sync. And as a heady psychotherapist, American woman who's, multiple Ivy League university degrees, we've been in our head a bit. So I say, how about a cuddle? So we get to experience that side. And this has to be negotiated from the head in heady cultures. So we cuddle, etc. And she's bored. She's not interested. I'm watching her, and I look at all these patterns because I've met and talked with so many women, And I give her one of my books. She's a published author. Here's one of my books as a gift. Now, she has shown scorn, skepticism, disinterest. She leaves the date early. I'm done. Okay. It's like one of my, okay. She reads the book. She reads the book. And she is madly interested in me. She loves this book. And suddenly I'm the best thing since sliced bread. So this is America, where you can be emotional, you can hold someone, take it or leave it. And the most intelligent people in the country, Ivy League published this, one of the few women who's a lot more wealthy than me, multimillionaire. She's not in love with me. She's in love with the book. And this is also America. So what I'm saying is, there's only a whole third of what I have always wanted was safe feminine energy to be with me, to lead the way into those dark wounds of a 2- and 5-year-old betrayed and abandoned child by women, and hold space for the feminine in me to work its way through those traumas and come back into my life so that I can honor the feminine in me. And this has gotten slapped down, shamed, attacked, and hated more times than any other part of me as an articulate, successful, quote, intelligent man in my own country. And so there's, so here's the contrast point to requests. This works relatively well. Meet a woman from a Craigslist ad. We're talking on the phone. Talk for an hour. Looks like we're lining up in some ways. How about getting together? Sure. My house is all set up for, serene, it's private or whatever. Sure. So we're on the phone. I go through exhaustive periods where, it's just, my body needs to rest. I happen to be one of them. I can talk at lengths in those periods. I just have to keep my eyes somewhat closed. I don't go into that with this woman because she's an erotic submissive. Now, an erotic submissive will follow you just about anywhere into excitement. And, well, there's different rules, but they have their own rules. You're not in control. They have their own rules. They're in control. But anyway, I walk this woman from a first phone call into my bed. She comes to my door. I say, the key is here. She opens the door. I say, walk down the stairs, walk into my bed. This happens in America. Now, the same woman who can be walked willingly, there's no one has this mysterious control, who can willingly walk from a first phone call from a Craigslist ad into my bed, where I then have a safe sex conversation. In fact, we've had that on the phone. We've had the full safe sex conversation, courtesy of Hi. Full expectations, what she can and cannot expect from me, So it is a clear and very, very, clear container. Now, this woman who will follow me into bed and is a wonderful lover, will not follow me into emotions. So this is a very important distinction. And as a submissive, I could have taken that relationship into all kinds of weird abuse, in the whole BDSM. She would follow me there. She would not follow me into direct emotions, and she would not follow me into that most pivotal of feminine choices, to put the relationship first. In other words, she's using the relationship as a little bit of a drug, and it's not connecting deeply with her heart, with the need to love and be loved. This is pain medication, is what this is. So I'm handsome, I'm a mysterious pain medication. I'm exciting, I'm bold, I'm taking the lead. And as long as I take her into erotic fantasy, she's mine, because that's what she wants, is diversion. And if I pivot that supposed, the supposed, it looks like what? It looks like I'm running the show, of course. If I take my supposed leadership and pivot it around to where, let's look at shame, let's look at pain. I don't want to talk to you. Who's really in control? Not me. I don't want to talk to you. I don't like your needy little boy. I don't want to put the relationship first. Got any more clothes pegs? I could show up for, I could hang upside down, have my panties blow like this in the breeze, and you could put 3 clothes pegs on my nipple. Ooh, that's exciting. Very exciting. How boring. Could we talk about anything real? No, we can't do. No, I'm not interested in that. And so this is just, I'm just kind of laying out a little bit of the disappointing limitations of asking for 100% in a given culture, in a given demographic. Because there are certain things that we need more than anything else, and one of them is nurturing healthy feminine energy in men and women. And it is one of the things that'll get attacked more than anything else. That's very, very painful. And so there's big hits and there's big losses. And after more than 1,000, I think it's probably reached, I'm being conservative, probably reached 7,000 to 10,000 requests in America. You get a little bit of a sense of, gee, this one hits it out of the park 98% of the time. This one hits it out of the park 10% of the time. This one hits it out of the park 0.01% of the time, with the exact same demographic of people. Do you think that has to do with you? No. I can get into bed with this, that, and the other. I just have to be willing to betray, to ignore, to suppress, to deny parts of myself that I don't want. That in fact, I've spent my whole life trying to bring those to light. And it just so happens that this whole demographic hates that part in themselves. And they'll be damned if they're going to go into that part in some man. So they don't. So they won't. And so that part in me gets betrayed and abandoned again and again and again. And so I understand those dissociated, lonely, shame-based young men who tear into the innocence, into the vulnerability of women and school children and this and that and the other, in rage and hate. Because abuse is rampant in the United States. And I think those young men are externalizing the hatred towards their inner feminine that they've experienced since birth from women, from men, from the culture, from the school system. You think a school system that doesn't spend a single hour teaching emotional literacy, doesn't spend a single hour explaining to a young girl or a young boy how admiration deteriorates into jealousy, how jealousy deteriorates into envy, how envy deteriorates into rage when very specific conditions are present. Nothing to do with the person, when very specific conditions are present. Nah, not important. In fact, you're a loser if you bring up the topic. How about that? How about we're not going to teach you anything. We're going to shame you for trying to learn. You think the inner feminine in those men feel happy? You think the inner feminine feel honored? You think they feel beautiful dignity? You think they feel masterful? No. The inner feminine in American men is in absolute torture. And the big question is, why is it okay for the inner feminine in men to be in absolute torture? And then ask those young men to say, no, we have a double standard here. Your inner feminine is crap. Your inner feminine is something we're going to shame you, torment you, humiliate you, etc. into the gutter. But my inner feminine, see, I've got breasts. You see that? These are breasts, okay? Boys and girls, these are breasts. See, I've got breasts. And so what you're supposed to do is continue hating and shaming and abusing your inner feminine like we've done since birth. But because I've got these little bumps here, my inner feminine is make me into a princess. In fact, buy me all the lunches. Take me out in your Lamborghini, or you're worthless. We don't need you. You don't have the money. It's more chauvinism. It's more feminine abuse. The man that has a feminine part that is overlooked by all the women. This is chauvinism. This is telling that man that his feminine side means absolutely nothing. Because the eyes traveled to a guy with a Porsche who was good in the masculine side, right? He outsmarted those other guys, came out on top and came out with a Porsche. So we want him. We want not his feminine side. The guy with the Porsche had to suppress his feminine side to come out on top. So now he can make what? Not the feminine side of the woman look good, the masculine side. I want to drive around with that important feeling. And this is women who've learned since birth that they're not valuable for their feelings. And so they're perpetuating the abuse. So this is cultural abuse as a mass, So if you're in that culture and you want to be beautifully feminine and want to be honored for it, you want to be given an award as the person with the most grace. You're in the Forbes 500 list of grace. You're in the Forbes 500 list of depth of emotion. You're in the Forbes 500 list of range of inner awareness. Yeah. What are they talking about? Feminine stuff. I don't need that. We want dissociated, sociopathic men who wouldn't know a feeling if it hit them in the face, who have bits of paper that say 70 billion, 80 billion Hooray! Hooray for them. That's what we want. Let's have a list of that. You see? So, I'm talking about medicine. And the medicine in America begins with chauvinism. Begins with the fact that in a high workshop, they'll teach you a safe sex conversation. Why? Because we've done the science on the body. We actually understand how physical viruses are transmitted. Now, why don't we understand how emotional viruses are transmitted? Why don't we understand, despite the obvious evidence, that shame was there in this father, now it's there in this son, now it's there in this grandson, and we can measure the exact same emotional virus, the sense of being worthless, hating oneself and all this is a virus. Why can't we measure that? And when we do, why isn't it worth doing something about? And why in a high workshop do we have a safe sex conversation? What does a safe sex conversation mean? It means, when did you have your STDs checked? When was your physical body checked out? And then let's just jump into bed as if that's the only thing that's there. No emotional conversation, no safe emotional conversation, no safe mental conversation. Yeah, you see, that's a little bit more ephemeral. It's a little bit more feminine. So let's just not have a board on the wall that says, talk about your shame, talk about your abandonment, talk about your trauma, talk about, oh, that would just ruin the mood completely. Do we have to bring the feminine into this? Emotions, sensitivity, need? We're mature Americans here that know, all the only thing that really matters is that I don't get herpes, feelings, container, Nah. Jumped into bed. How did I perform? How was my erection? Did I last this number of minutes? Masculine, masculine, masculine. There's no language to talk about the depth of presence. Nobody says, how was it? And they mean, how was the depth of presence? Did you put it inside? Did you use a condom? Masculine, masculine, masculine. It just isn't on the map. I met a high woman and it reached the point where a single touch of our body opened up doorways. And in a timeless, beautiful, dimensional space that I've never experienced with anyone else before or since. Every touch of every part of the body, a doorway into places I've never been. And when I tried to put it inside, it distracted both of us from that energy. And for 4 days, without interruption, touch, opening. And there's no language in my culture to talk about that. Or lead me there again. Or find me a partner who hungers for that space enough to risk all of the landmines of shame and humiliation my culture has placed on the ground to explode in the face of any American who steps into that depth. This is horrific. We don't even know what is being taken away from us. After 30 high workshop, the facilitators didn't lead to that place, you see. There is so much emotional landscape that is not being covered. In 70 Lovers, one took me there. I've helped maybe 10 or 15 lovers go a third into that doorway. Some of them becoming increasingly alarmed as the gauge of their emotional intensity lifted from the 1 to 2 that is socially acceptable up through the 4 and 5 of excitement, deep into the terrain of vulnerability and need up at the 6-7 mark. I don't want to be here. I don't want to need this man. Let me start tightening the muscles of my thighs. Let me start clenching. Let me start moving my head to break the spell so that we come back into the safe, calm American terrain where I don't need anyone. I didn't feel anything. I'm good. I'm good. It's wonderful, isn't it? So, requests. Asking for your 100%, where it can lead. Polyamory. Something I discovered in high. Where can it lead? Well, it's surprisingly easy. Meaning I had looked for 4 years for one woman. 4 years for one woman who would show up at least 4 hours a day, enthusiastically dive into the depth of emotion, who could make and keep clear agreements and containers, who could put relationship first, who would show up with a mindset of let's do this as equals rather than you're a guy, pay for everything, whatever. I don't care if we bring equal down to $100 a month, but I want the mindset that we're in this together. You're not fixing me, I'm not fixing you, etc., etc. So could I find? No. The cutoff point I would hit was about 12 hours a week. This was a big deal. You know, if a woman really liked me in America, you'd say, okay, when can we see each other? It'd be like 1 to 2 weeks out for 3-4 hours. It's like, well, that's 4 hours a week. Well, I want a relationship. I've just got lots of things going on. Okay, you've packed lots of things into your calendar that make sure you cannot enter the kinds of states that I want to experience with you. Well, don't you understand? I'm an important masculine woman I've got my library club. Yes, I understand. I know exactly why it's so important to be busy in this country that's so committed to not feeling feelings. I do. I know there's whole parts of the world where people haven't bought into the delusion that getting through the book of the month club and the this and the that and the other somehow makes them more important than just feeling grace and presence and knowing how to talk about shame or joy. I know other places, but yes, I get it. Okay, another one. So I couldn't find it. So I said, fine. It's just, I think I was in it at least 200 women. No. So this one woman I liked, you want to see me Tuesdays and Thursdays. You call that a relationship. Okay. Fine. I will see you Tuesdays and Thursdays. As long as all the other days, I'm a free agent. What do you want? Do you want to give me more time? You want me to be a free agent? You want to bow out? What do you want? Okay, fine. You show up Tuesdays and Thursdays. You have sex with other women on the other time. I just did this until I had a full week. How many people did it take to have a full week? 7. 7 American women to have one totally full week. Okay, so I was polyamorous. completely honest with all of them, just the same protocol. You like me? Okay. You want to have sex with me? Fine. Okay. So how many hours do you want to give me a week? Well, 3 here, 2 here. Anyway, 7 lovers. What do you learn there? It was a very valuable learning experience, because if you are in monogamy or serial monogamy, you've probably had the experience like me of the other person saying that they know who you are and maybe even complaining about who you are. Why don't you talk more? Why don't you do this? Why are you so serious? Why, all this stuff. Now here's the great opener for 7 lovers a week. Well, I laughed my head off with one woman. I cooked my ass off for one woman. I took one woman into transcendent sexuality every single time. Deep energy work, crying, laughing, just hours and hours of waves. I took another woman who wouldn't let me anywhere near her vagina into deep childlike cuddling and gifts. We did gifts and exquisite this and this. Another woman wouldn't even meet me. So we had 8-hour phone conversations that were psychic to a degree that I've never experienced anywhere else. After 6 to 8 hours talking in the language of the right brain, we would be exploring geometric shapes, and she'd see parts of the shape that I was seeing that hadn't talked. We'd finish each other's sentences. So basically what tends to happen in every time I've recongealed this structure is that the self is split into these different personas that are acceptable in this situation but not in this. I've never met a group, by the way, where all of me was welcome. Never. In high depth of conversation is not welcome, meaning you cannot have, could you just share your feelings in one sentence? Keep it to the, does this fit into a sentence? Of course not. So this part, what you're seeing here doesn't fit in high. It fits on this camera. Now, a heart share with 5 people doesn't fit on the camera. You get the idea. So I've never been in a place where all of me can show up liquidly and move through the snake-like vortex of personas and sides of self and have them be free. No, they have to fit into little boxes. We do this here, we do this here, we do this here. And what that means is that almost no one sees more than 1/3 of me. Because 2/3 of me is banished from the arena where I spend time with that person. But this actually happens in polyamorous relationships. Well, it happens in all relationships, but you get to see it in polyamorous relationships. Because I could then tell to the woman who said, I'm too serious, I could say, well, every Thursday, I laugh my head off. And so the real interesting question is, why do you, who say I'm too serious, not do the things that this woman does that make me laugh my head off? Because I can laugh as well as the next guy, just not with you. You see? So this was eye-opening. And of course, the mess of what's wrong with me? No, nothing's wrong. It just is a doorway into seeing that who emerges, that who we are with shapes who we are far more than we realize. Most of us, don't get the opportunity to experience that. Well, if you see someone Tuesdays and Thursdays and Wednesdays in the morning and Wednesday in the afternoon and and this part of you shows up every single time for this person and not ever for this person, you start to realize it's not me. I'm the same person. I'm just not in an environment where my humor is honored. Here, 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 here. And then this one environment where my humor is watered and loved and cherished. I'm in with a beautiful Filipino woman. And I'm getting to be a playful teenager in ways I've never experienced. I didn't get to be a teenager as a child. I was taking care of my parents by the time I was 8 years old. I was terrified of American teenagers, a dangerous beast. And I was busy trying to prepare myself to leave the house as soon as possible before it killed me. So I didn't get to be a teenager. And so I get to be a teenager. It's wonderful. It's like, I feel, it's like, wow, I never knew what this felt like. Well, I have to go halfway around the world and find a very specific woman that brings out this part of me, because I didn't even know it was there. And it's not about better or worse. It's about diversity. It's about ecology. It's about the fact that the self cannot fully come together in symmetry and beauty when whole parts of the psyche have been denied since birth, have never had a few breaths of honored air to come in, to be celebrated, to be born, because we didn't want those parts around here. So this is part of, just learning. So workshops and structure. I learned, if you watch the facilitators reading their scripts facilitate extraordinary feminine energy. It's amazing. You take a group of random Americans, stick them in a room, and you have them go through a script. Breathe like this for 1 minute, think like this for 2 minutes, say like this for 2 minutes, pause for 30 seconds, switch, touch like this for 30 seconds, touch like this for 10 seconds, touch, switch. It's a spell. It evokes parts of the psyche that can come out, that will never come out at a cocktail at a cocktail party. You'll never meet that self in that person in any other way. It's like you'll never meet the quality of flour in a pancake that's baked into bread. You see? It's the same raw ingredients. Each of our psyches were born neutral. We're born beautiful and whole. And this culture started slicing away and shaming, slicing away and traumatizing, slicing away and ignoring. We're just all going to pretend that this whole part of the psyche just doesn't exist. Hello, I just saw a ghost. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Don't talk like that. People are going to think you're weird. Okay. Doesn't exist. Hello, I'm a boy and I feel sad. No, you don't. Here's your new truck. So we're just going to pretend. No, doesn't exist. And if we all do it, maybe it'll work, and we'll just forget. Or more commonly, these parts become so dishonored, we just get to move on. And we don't even want to get anywhere near that, because when we think of that part of the psyche, we no longer think of its beautiful potential. We think it's very much like an arm. If you can imagine, this hand, every time it's raised, it's attacked, mud is thrown at it, it's, stabbed. Eventually, this is going to look like a complete mess. Dirty, unclean, blood, dry blood, sick, pussy, all this stuff. You see, and once the culture does this to a part of the psyche, its biggest trick is to say, because this used to be a nice arm that had all kinds of potential of being an ally to the psyche. But the biggest trick a psyche, a culture does with a disowned part of the psyche is, after attacking it pre-language and during language in this, for 5-10 years, it is, the most disgusting bowl of pus, because that's what any part of us becomes when it's dishonored, attacked, abused, shamed, eviscerated, etc. And then the culture says, this is why we don't talk about that. Do you want to talk about a bowl of pus? Well, there you go. Done. Do you want to look at that ugly hand? Who needs a left hand? Give me a break. Look how nice your right hand looks. See, we've developed that. We've taught you all about how thinking like Descartes, I think, therefore I am, and da. I feel, therefore I'm an idiot, So just get that out of here. Get that smelly object out. And the culture, of course, never owns that you were born with two good hands and that an intelligent culture would have developed both of them equally. No. We're not going to admit our own stupidity. We're going to turn half of you into a disgusting, smelling object, and then we're going to say that's who you are, and don't you ever bring that to the dinner table because we're too dumb to recognize its potential. And we're too dumb to recognize that we're dumb, so could you feel embarrassed because we are going to look at you as if you ought to know better than to show up with that. We're all just going to stare at you, and you got the message. That part of who you are has never been welcome around here. What makes you think you can bring it up now? You fool. Get it out of here. And if you're too dumb to recognize that, we'll just ostracize the entire person. We'll bring the entire person and just throw them out of the room because they showed up with the wound. And we don't like looking at that. So you have this whole game going on, in the culture and in any relationship. You have men eviscerating the feelings of women so that the feelings of women will match the eviscerated feminine that the women raising that man and the men raising that man and the school raising that man eviscerated in the man. So the wound externalizes. If you want to do something about men eviscerating women, look at the women who are eviscerating those men. American children are taught that strangers are terrible people and all that. And so I just have about 10 seconds with an American child and whatever. And I rarely get innocence. And I was in a Thai restaurant recently, and this little 6-year-old girl with complete innocence threw herself in my arms, laughing, wanted to be carried around, etc. And so I carried her around. And I found myself sexualizing her in my mind. I didn't ask for it, didn't think, let's sexualize a 6-year-old little girl. And I wanted to know, where's that coming from? How does, someone who does journaling, someone who's done inner child meditation, someone who's, been working on himself since he's 14 years old as an American boy, dream work, how does this come in? Because I'm aware that what my country does is if I say that, I'm a villain. I'm a dangerous man, right? I'm the bad guy. Not a safe person, right? So I noticed this thought. I'm holding her buttocks on my back, so you can swing around and play. And I'm like, where does this come from? I get all these memories. My mother baby powdering me. And she's in this 17-year-old curiosity energy. One of the few times she's older than 4 years old emotionally. And they've taken the kids out into the wilderness. So there's no TV, there's no media, there's all this stuff. We grew up in isolation. So we have nothing but our parents. And so our parents get to do all these little experiments on us. And we have no idea about any of it. We don't know about sex, complete innocence. So my feminine, my little girl, grew up completely sexualized. There was no innocent relationship because my mother was never innocent. From the time she was 4 years old, I met her father. I don't know what went on there, but he scared me. Within 30 seconds of meeting him, I didn't see a man, I saw a snake. But this culture raised that snake. And this culture tolerates that snake. This culture doesn't heal human beings that get trapped in their reptilian brain. And there's only one thing that traps a man in their reptilian brain, and it is severe unrepaired trauma. Human beings don't like being reptiles. It's no fun. If someone is a reptile, if you feel that crawling snake-like energy with no emotion. It's because they've been trapped there. Why? Why is it okay for my mother's father to be stuck into his reptilian brain and then left there to violate other people in the exact same way that he's been violated? We don't have a problem with men, we have a problem with culture. Because the joke, the stupidity of an ignorant culture wants to say that you can infect a young boy in his feminine with shame and horror and trauma. And then somehow magically you can erase the contagiousness of that disease. It'd be the same stupidity of a culture saying that you could inject the flu and you could inject AIDS into the feminine side of a young boy, and then suddenly just expect that all that toxicity is going to stir around in there and not work its way out. And we ask our young men who have had ounce upon ounce of arsenic and shame and horror and violence and pain and loneliness crammed. Okay, you got enough of that, little boy? Okay. Now you go out and treat women the exact opposite. Once you've got the power, you see, once you're in the masculine pole. Right now, we the adults have the masculine pole in the dynamic. But once you're in the masculine pole, once you're in the lead, we need you to do the exact opposite of what we've done to you since birth. Got it? Brains can't figure that out. And we're too dumb. Nobody's looking at my mother, you see? If I pipe my voice, well, why am I feeling sexual towards this 4 or 6-year-old little girl? Why? What's going on here? This culture has an answer. You are a pedophile. You should be locked up. You. No one's looking at my mother. Oh, that cute little bimbo in her fantasy, primping herself endlessly, and she was so beautiful. And that's what everyone told me in this culture. I don't like the fact my mother lied to me. Oh, Dane, you're very lucky. Look how beautiful your mother is. Look at how beautiful she is. It's like, what does that have to do with anything? I'm talking about my feelings. I feel terribly hurt. She lied to me again. Who cares? Who cares about a little boy's feelings in this culture? Your mother's so beautiful. That's why I've never paid any attention to a woman's body. Fat, old, young, could give a shit. Because, very statistically speaking, I'm never going to meet more than 1 in 10,000 women who comes close to the physical beauty of my mother. She's been in misery her whole life. She's brought misery around her. She is living in a fantasy world. Clearly, beauty is not all it's cracked up to be. So why should I buy into the culture's obsession with stupidity? No, I'm going to relate to women who talk. My mother certainly couldn't do that. When she did, she lied. Okay, got it. You know, I get attacked for that. When I pick a 58-year-old woman as my first girlfriend, everyone attacks me in my culture. New Age, you know, I'm visiting an anthroposophical, energy medicine, homeopathic. You can't get more quacky than that. New Age doctor. And he's like, what are you doing with that older woman? There's no revolutionary New Age. You can sit there and do dowsing with men who have been raised in this culture who don't know what they're doing. And you can go to a redneck bar and look at men who don't know what they're doing because they've been raised in this culture. You know, it doesn't clear up because you're into quackery of some kind. Every little bit of this culture's programming is stuck in there to attack healthy men and women until it's dismantled. And that's the key part of the medicine that I'm telling you because nobody told me. No one sat me down and explained this to me. Go figure, 150,000 in therapy. No, I'm not going to tell you anything useful. So, what do you learn with structures in high? You learn they work. You learn that it's not about the people, it's about the protocol. That's useful. So that was what I learned from high. So I stopped focusing on the people. So basically I said, I don't care how old you are. I don't care what you look like. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. What I care about is, will you engage like this and not like this? Will you have this hierarchy of values rather than this hierarchy of values? Will you talk about this before this rather than this before this? Because this is the only differential. It's the recipe. In the extreme, to help me understand, where this was going, I said to myself, if Adolf Hitler drove up with the Third Reich behind him, so not very attractive man, and Charlotte Dane, I have an invitation for you. I'm going to pick you up at the time of your choosing. Just raise a finger. Drive you off in a limo. We're going to talk about world philosophy. We're going to talk about where these feelings are coming from inside me. We're going to talk about what we'd like to do before we die. We're going to talk about our biggest regrets. We're going to do this. We're going to go to the finest restaurant over here. We're going to fly to a helicopter over here. We're going to have fresh-made guacamole over the Grand Canyon with a glass-bottomed helicopter. If you spill any of the nacho chips, the Grand Canyon will be framed with the art of falling food. Are you up for it? And I'd look at the situation. Is Hitler going to be healthier or more sick as a result of spending quality time like that? Do we need healthy people? Do we need sick people? Okay, I'm in. Is that going to be more fun than sitting around with my American girlfriend apologizing for having feelings? Yes. Is it going to be novel? Am I going to see some part of myself I've never seen before? Yes. Come on, Hitler. Let's go. It's not about the person. It's about what any person chooses to do with the time. You can come up with a compelling enough recipe that would make spending time with anyone more valuable than the mediocrity of, let's see, should I have Miller Lite or a stout at this noisy bar with this person who I think I should like because my culture says they have big breasts, but who I can't even hear what they're saying because she likes to meet in noisy bars. Which is more interesting? You see, it's this interesting person in a mediocre recipe, or this mediocre person in an exquisite recipe? Or how about just a person? A person in an exquisite moment. A person in... let's keep things spontaneous. Did you see the news today? Well, I did. Well, let me tell you what I think about Hillary. Oh, indeed. Well, let's do that. How boring can we get to keep it spontaneous? Oh, let's not have any structure. Let's keep it natural. You see, there's nothing natural about this culture. Cultures are cults. They train people systematically. You can find America loves the individual, right? So you will find Americans all around the world. And the way you tell an American when you're traveling is they're talking about themselves and what they want and what good service is and isn't and how da-da-da-da-da. You can say, oh, there's an American. And you go up to that American, you say, are you a free person? Yes, nobody tells me what to do. No, I'm an American, no one tells me what to do. That's an interesting thing. I mean, all 300 Americans say the same thing. They all say nobody tells me what to do. Yes, and I'm busy. Oh, that's interesting. All the Americans I meet are busy. Nobody taught you that. It's not a cult, is it? No, it's not a cult. I'm my own person. I don't need anything. I want my beer. Get out of my way. Who are you? You're not wearing Gucci shoes. Get out of my way. It's not a cult. No, it's not a cult. I'm an American. So cultures are cults. Fortunately, there are some good parts. You get some stuff brainwashed you that's intelligent, and some part that's complete nonsense. It's all cults. You're just lucky if you're in a cult that has some good stuff. High is a cult. And there's some good stuff there. You go to the high cult and you do da-da-da-da-da. You learn this and you start saying, I have an appreciation. I have an appreciation too. It's a cult, but there's some good stuff in the cult. When you need to belong, a need that most Americans have not fully satisfied. When you need to belong, it's a need, people. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, survival, security, belonging. You have to meet the need to belong before you meet self-actualization. Oh, I am an American. I think I'm going to meet self-actualization before. No. I meet people at bars. There's this bar down the road. It's called Freedom Bar. And it's where the expats love to ride up in their Harleys. And the whole act is, I don't care about anyone. I do whatever I want. Nobody's going to tell me I can't spend my retirement money on 6 beers and a hooker, And these men are terrified of one another. I watch them do this dance of, nobody tells me what to do, and the other person interrupts, and he's got the bigger skinhead and all that. So they need to belong to that bar. They all show up to the script. And if they show up and they say, I have sensitive feelings, I care about you, buddies, everyone's going to scowl at them until they leave the bar. And then they're going to learn what is acceptable behavior in Freedom Bar. And they're not going to show up again until they've got their trophy hooker with them, because that's, we can't do this back home, can't do this with the women back home. They're just seeking to belong in their little clique. The Goths. You think the Goths let someone show up in white and orange? Get out of here. We're Goths. Go away. Be a monk. We're Goths around here. We don't like strangers. Well, there you go. So, endings. 99% of all endings, terrible. Why? Why are endings so terrible? Well, some person thinks, see you around. Text, see you around. Great ending. Very clear. Another person thinks, let me sleep with their best friend. I think they would get the message. Okay. So what are you going to do? Terrible endings? Do you want terrible endings? No, I don't want terrible endings. Do you want terrible endings? No. So what are you going to do? Okay, how about scripting an ending? How about we're about to begin this relationship and let's do this before sex. Why? Because you stop thinking clearly as soon as you've had sex. So let's do this before. Let's do it at the time we think clearly. Let's talk about a good ending. Why? Seems to me, if you look around throughout human history, you look around, let's see, I've had 70 girlfriends. None of them are in my life. What do you think the odds are that you'll be in my life when we separate? Not very good. Look at the statistics. Do you want to look at statistics, or do you want to pretend I'm a fantasy prince? Okay, let's look at the statistics. So there's, at least less than 1 in 70%, 1 in 70. I mean, that's not very good odds. So we got about 2%, 1% odds that we'll be in each other's life at the time of death. How about having that be beautiful? What's wrong with the dying process, America? What's wrong? Birth, blossoming, dying, death. Birth, blossoming, dying, death. What's wrong with a third of the cycle? Oh, we can't look at that. It's bad. Don't want to look at that. Why not? Oh, it's bad. Well, it certainly turns out bad when you don't look at it, doesn't it? Most endings are bad, yeah. Let's create some great endings. This is a great distinction. If you want to meet a really mature person on a first or second date, ask them about an exquisite way they'd like to end their next relationship. See what happens. Here's what I find that happens. Someone over 50 who's had a few relationships, of course, most of them ending tragically. Why wouldn't they in a culture that teaches trigonometry more than relationship skills? Of course they end tragically. We would have 747s ending tragically if we didn't teach pilots how to fly, if we didn't teach them how to gracefully land. So what do? Well, an over 50-year-old intelligent American woman who cares about herself says, that's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that question. Why? Why has nobody ever asked that question? Anyway, it's America. Nobody's ever asked it. We're all free individual people, but no one asked that. And so nobody's ever asked me that question. Now I know I'm onto someone, you see? She's going into terrain nobody's been before. She's interested. Well, this is an adventurous person, right? So I say, me too. There's not a single person in my entire life who has ever asked me how I would like to end. They just throw the ending in my face and leave me to deal with it. Sound like fun to you? No, I don't want it. I don't want it for you. I don't want it for me. What are we going to do? How about we design a beautiful ending? Well, gosh, what would that look like? Well, first of all, woman, you don't need to deal with me lying. I've never lied to a partner. I've never lied to a friend, so I'm not going to end with you lie. You don't have to deal with me cheating. Never cheated on a woman in my life. Don't plan to. I end for all kinds of reasons, but a big thing is the parts of me I'm trying to grow are withering in that relationship. I have to decide, be with myself withering and be loyal to this person, or be loyal to these parts that are withering, and after trying everything imaginable with that person, end the relationship. That's the biggest reason. And if you actually care about me rather than just having sex with me, I would hope that you would want me to be the person I want to be. Makes sense. Okay. So this is why I end. So this is not a big urgent thing. It's not like I'm going to know at 3 a.m. parts of me are withering. I've got to end immediately. No. We're going to be talking about this, and it's like I feel like I'm having to nag you to talk about depth. I'm nagging you again. Maybe we should end. You see? I don't want to nag anyone to talk about depth. I want you to come to me with depth. Hooray, I have depth. Here's depth, Dane. Let's talk about it for 12 hours. Let's be in bed. Let's explore the depths of my pussy, the depths of this, the depths of that. I've got depths. That's what I want. I want depths, and you don't. So, okay, we have a different picture here. Okay, still a different picture. Okay, so that's have an ending. So what would be a great ending? So we talk about a script. And what I think, people when they end, just so you know, it's traumatic. Why? Because you're losing a primary need to belong. And in America, there's not that much backup. I don't have a single family member to go back on. I don't think it's fair to lean back on my ex-lovers, you see. And American men? Friendships with American men to fall back on around a deep grief of ending? I've never met an American man that wants to go into deep grief with me. Not once. All these independent thinkers, none of them think it's a good idea to go into grief, so they're just not there. No, it's not there. Where do you go? It's a trauma, so you don't want to invent a great ending while you're being traumatized and feeling the trauma. Because when I end with a woman, it's not like, oh, I can't wait to go on to the next person. This is not about sex. This is like, I tried to grow these parts of me with you. I tried to grow these parts of me, and I failed. And I'm going to have to go through, 100, 200, 300 more people before I find one person that's even willing to give it a shot. Maybe this is fun? No, this is terrible. But let's make it as beautiful and terrible as it can be. So we have a script. And I like to make it into an agreement. You agree that if you want to end with me, you're going to do it like this, 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 this. Can you see yourself doing that? Is this going to violate your sense of independence? Let's know before we begin. Let's know before we have sex. Okay. This works very, very well. Here's why. First of all, 60% of people will run away from you right there. Now, why is this good? Why is it good if 60% of the men and women you're talking to just get up and leave on a first or second date because you're bringing up the topic of ending? It's good because it's telling you a number of things. First of all, it may be telling you they're in fantasy land. We're going to live happily ever after, right? That's not what the statistics say. So could we at least have a safety net? I mean, I'm not saying that if you make me happier than I've ever been, that if I'm growing more than I've ever grown, that if we're having beautiful heavenly sex, that we're making loads of money together, that we're traveling the world in bliss and luxury, that we're eating the foods we love to eat, that I'm going to end with you. I'm not actually saying that I'm planning to have an amazing relationship and then just end it on principle. No. What I'm saying is that if all that goes well, and the rainbows come out and all that, we don't have to ever end. All I'm saying is that if you end, and if I end, let's do it with some style. Let's do it with some intelligence. You mean you might end with me? I just might. Believe it or not, I just might. Well, I don't like that attitude. I want to be positive. Well, do you have car insurance? Are you planning on getting in a car accident? Well, that's different. Yes, it is different. You're thinking rationally about your car. It sounds like you want to have an irrational relationship with me. Well, no, thank you. I've had enough irrational relationships for one lifetime. So, off you go. It is the most sophisticated, self-loving people that think this is a good idea. What does that mean? It means you're only going to be relating to the top 2 to 3% of people who are mature and intelligent. Well, isn't that a good start? I mean, just that alone. No, you don't want to talk about ending? Wonderful. Who wants to talk about ending? Oh, you do. Interesting. I know you're an interesting person because you think, because you have self-love. You actually want to end beautifully. You're looking at the whole life cycle. You're not partitioning death into the taboo area of shame and shadow. How wonderful. So you are going to be a great partner. See, I love it. When I meet a woman who wants to talk about endings, I already know I'm in the top 3% of winning. Just that. So here's a little tip for you. Talk about endings. Have people leave you in droves just for bringing up an intelligent topic. End up with an intelligent minority that want to celebrate an ending. I go into some of my detailed ending agreements. I think Finding Love in a Fucked Up World, that was one of my frustrated books. You know, it's maddening to have to go through 200 people that say they want to grow and, won't talk about endings, won't make any time, won't have clear agreement. We want to grow. We just want to do it in an environment that is absolutely conducive to toxic shame and blame and reenacting childhood trauma. Are you willing to grow in that terrain? Well, I was actually hoping to grow in the terrain where we bring a little light and attention and detail on it. Could we grow there? No? Okay, I guess. Got lots of men to choose from. Off you go. Endings. Not learned anything at high. Why? Why does high not deal with the fact that I've had 30 high lovers, they've all ended? No attention to ending. They give attention to beginning like the rest of the culture. How about some attention to ending? We've already covered 100%. We've covered requests. Some requests, people are lining up to meet those requests. I want to talk about being of service, and this is an important area. So a lot of what I've been talking about, there's an enormous amount of pain, hence the undertones of sarcasm. It's incredibly painful to care enough about another woman's feelings, to know the odds, to look at the statistics, and to watch someone I care about fighting me to walk down a path that leads to a dark place, and blame me for trying to steer things in a path that seems to be heading to a light place. Few things have been so painful for me in my life, so I can't go in there without weeping. And being Americans, if this video is of me weeping, all the unspent tears of all the people who have left me to go down darker places, it's not even about me. Going with anyone down that route, the statistics are not good. I don't want my friends investing speculatively as amateurs in commodities when 80% of all people who invest in commodities lose money, and 80% of all people who buy and hold index funds make money. I want you to be in the index fund, not the commodities. And it's painful as hell to be rejected. And actually, because sometimes, like endings, nobody's doing them, but that does not mean they're bad. Meaning, no one in my entire life has ever said, Dane, when it comes time for our relationship to end, how could we do that so it doesn't re-traumatize your early childhood attachment and this and that and the other, and we could feel great about it? Not one person has done it. But that doesn't mean that the world wouldn't be a far better place if we all did give the same attention to endings. In fact, there are some wonderful statistics that show that the majority of humankind has never been correct. What that means, if you're dealing with a bell curve of any kind, is you want to be in the minority camp. There's just one problem. There's two parts that are in the minority. The absolute laggards and the absolute bleeding edge. They're both minorities. So you've got to be smart enough when you leave the majority that is always wrong to pick the right side of the minority because the outliers are, people that don't get out of bed, they're so busy drinking. Okay, most alcoholics aren't that bad, they're an outlier. And the people who are pioneering new work on shame and don't need alcohol anymore, they're a pioneer. And the bleeding edge just hang in the middle and up and down, the majority. Okay, so the majority has never been correct. You want to be in a minority position, you just have to know which one. Which means, unfortunately, you got to learn how to think, which our school system has not done. Because the first obvious question in a school system is, what the fuck am I doing learning trigonometry and not learning sales and not learning communication skills and not learning relationship skills and not learning how to break the chauvinism of the culture? As soon as you learn how to think, the only intelligent education is to spend each minute in a way that will lead to the most well-being per student of any topic and way that minute could be spent. And when you're dealing with an archaic 300-year-old patriarchal education system, the obvious thing is, what the fuck are we doing here? Well, schools can't teach you to think when they're not thinking themselves. So we don't know how to think. So spend time reading outliers. Henry Ford was one of my mentors at 14 years old. Gave me the courage to leave school and stuff like that because he had buzzers. He just had specialists. Henry Ford never finished 6th grade. He had specialists that would answer his questions. He was a synthesizer, so it's like I decided I'm going to be that too. And my life on the business front, very good. Could be a lot better if I wanted to waste more time making more money that I don't need. Could be a lot better. This country thinks it's all about money. It's not. It's a complete waste of time. Once you've got your 100 grand a year, it's a waste of time. Focus on your quality of life and relationships. So, being of service is an important thing. My first experience of being of service came, I was like 5 or 6 lovers in. I hate talking like that. That's just, we talk in numbers. How do you get to a point quickly? Well, we use numbers in our culture. That's 5 or 6 heartbreaks, traumas, hesitancies, risks, asking hundreds, all this stuff. Anyway, 5 or 6 in. And I had sex with a woman on Friday night as a team member who was in the workshop as a participant, long-term intern. I felt absolutely nothing. It's like, wow. Who wants to have sex when there's no deeper feelings? There's a beautiful body and nothing like that. Well, I knew there were people that if I had sex, that something would click and there would be these deep feelings. And I wanted those deep feelings, but they didn't appear. Well, what do you do? I doesn't teach this. So I thought, I'm missing out on this workshop. I'm not having deep feelings. We've agreed to be lovers for the whole workshop because I learned from the woman who just slept around with every man after Friday night how terrible abandoning it was for me because I had deep feelings with her. She just had sex with me on Friday night and I had to watch her having sex with half the workshop the rest of the weekend. So I was just miserable, and then she was supposed to be my buddy. All my upsets were about her, so I didn't have a buddy, So I didn't want to do that to this woman. What to do? So I first of all, I asked her. I thought maybe she doesn't have any feelings either, in which case she's loved to get out of this container. I asked her. I said, how was it last night for you? What would feel best to you? I want to let you know that if you would like, I know this is a very sensitive topic, so I didn't want to lead into I can't wait to get out of this, because people have very different feelings around relationships. So I was feeling nothing, but it was possible. She was madly in love. Who knows? Chemistry is different. But I said, if you would like out of it, how was it? What would be best for you? So we had the plan to do this container, and I just want to check in and see what's still good for you. And she said, I want to stay as a container for the rest of the weekend. So I said, okay, I am going to be a good partner for this woman. I'm going to attend to her. I'm going to talk with her. I'm going to put her first. I am going to treat this person with discipline and clear intention the way a lover and partner deserves to be treated. I'll just ask myself, what ought a good partner to do here? So I had no feeling. And so I thought, what is this? Nobody had taught me. What am I doing here? Is this duty? What is this? I said, I don't know. But I think she's going to feel better if I do this. And I'm going to make this workshop about making this woman feel cared about. And I don't know of a better thing to do with this workshop, so that's what I'm going to do. So I did that. Then the next night, nothing. And the workshop ended. And no big fireworks, none of the lightning striking, anything like that. But I was getting to know a part of myself that was about being of service. Attending, this is the discipline. And when it came time to our relationship container ending, we had said we would be a couple for the workshop, and she wasn't even from my area of the country. She wasn't even from my country, so. And she was going to be traveling. She was going to be traveling for a couple of weeks, and in the area. And perhaps because I'd been a dutiful and caring partner, she didn't particularly want the interaction to end. And I'd never done anything like this, so I thought, well, let's see. Obviously, you're supposed to do things you've never done before if you want to learn. I've had this amazingly stunning comeback from women when I say, let's have a 5-hour conversation about this, let's do this, let's talk about endings. They say to me, I've never done that before in my life. As if that's enough of a reason never to do it. Of course you haven't done in your life, because every time you have the opportunity, if anyone else ever asks you, you're going to say the same thing. You've never done it before. Well, what a great way not to grow. So let's just no one do anything they've never done before, and we'll all grow zero. Or they say, I don't know you. No, you don't. But you will if you have this 10-hour conversation. And they're saying like, but I don't know you. Like, that's the point. That's the point. It's like, if you knew everything about me, I wouldn't be suggesting that we have a 10-hour conversation so that you could learn everything about me. And they're just hung on this, but I don't know you. It's like, yeah, and you never will you? No, that's a good enough. You've never done it before, and you don't know me. And so you're never going to do it, and you're never going to know me. Wonderful, wonderful. What great pinnacles of logic is going to take us into profound states of growth and healing. Anyway, I told this woman, okay, as long, what I hate is this on again, off again thing where I don't know if I'm betraying someone. I like intense doings, let's do something. And then if we want to end it, let's end it. Let's not just keep each other waiting in case you call. And then, what, you're already with another woman? Well, it's like, you never said when you would call. You never made any agreements. You never requested a goddamn thing. You just joined the thousands of women who said they might call. You think I'm going to wait around for that? I mean, give me a break. So so I told her, I said, if you will show up for every day you show up and be in this relationship, I'll be in it. It's like, but if you want to end, just don't leave me hanging. Because a lot of high women, they want to meet with this guy for 2 days a year, and this guy, and then they want to circle back, and I'm supposed to be in limbo or something, So you just show up you show up for me every day. When you're ready, you say it's over, and you can do whatever you want. But we're a couple every single day until we're not. Well, as I say, there were no lightning bolts and all this stuff. But then we were at my house, and there's this moment we're making love. And she's saying, faster, 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 faster. And I noticed the addictive energy. And what's beneath the addictive energy